Hey there. So thank you for sending your videos. I only got piano stuff, so I'm going to address that first and then I'll go over vocal stuff at the end. Everything though is looking pretty good. So even though you haven't had optimal practice time, we're looking like we're still in good shape, and I'd like to give you some more new stuff to do so that even whatever time that you have, even if it's not a lot of time this week, you still have some new things to kind of get in the mix and keep us moving forward a little bit. So the first thing is actually the note speller homework. So the last page that we had assigned was page 22. What I would like to do is to also actually do page 23. Where did I put that book? Here. So page 22 was just naming some notes in both bass clef and treble clef, kind of looking at common notes that you would have in middle C position, and then matching your note names to notes on the staff. Page 23 is just dealing with your treble clef line notes. So you'll enter the names of the notes onto the staff, like the actual letter names to start, and then they have you just working on treble clef line notes to get some more practice with naming. Nothing should be like super challenging or confusing. It should just be more practice with identifying those notes. If you want to really challenge yourself, you can try and knock it out as quickly as you are able to, and then go back and double check your answers, or just go through the page and practice naming the notes. Either way works for me. But what we'll do is, if we end up doing a virtual lesson this way for next week as well, then I'll have you send me just pictures of those theory pages when you send me your new video clips for that lesson. So that is the note speller. And then the next thing, let's talk about the G arpeggios. So your G arpeggios are actually looking great, and we had only gone over those the one time. So that's looking really good. I think we could maybe have a little bit more consistency on the tempo, but I also think if you were having a little bit more time to practice, it would take care of itself. So I'm really not concerned about that. I really would like to move on to something different for this week so that we're not still kind of just going through the motions on that one, because we'll get plenty more practice with arpeggios in the future. So let's actually go on to do a chord review this week. So all that I want you to do is to actually just go through and practice playing all of the chords that we've covered for our technique exercises up to this point. So that would be a C chord, a G chord, an F chord, a D chord, an A chord, and an E chord. So the first three of those, C, G, and F, those are just all white keys. Those are the first three keys that we really studied. And then D, A, and E major are the newest ones, and those all have a sharp key in the middle. So you'll have all your breakdown, of course, in your binder in the technique section for what goes into those chords. The blocked and broken triads and the pentascale pages will give you that information. But I just want you to start identifying in your head, okay, if I'm gonna play a C chord, what notes do I need? So that we can start recognizing those chords as an entity of themselves and not going through, okay, if I'm gonna play, you know, my C blocked triads and kind of dissect it that way. I want us to be really comfortable with and familiar with naming chords as chords so that you can recognize that as well. So again, that's C, G, F, D, A, and E. And you'll just, every time that you sit down to practice, pick a chord at random and see if you can remember the three notes that go in that chord. And the goal is to be able to correctly identify them on the first try. Let's see, Hannon. So Hannon is looking really good. That is in great shape, and your syncopation is really in good shape too. Coming down, we started to lose a little bit of the short notes. We were kind of elongating them a little bit, but you always were making sure to bring it right back to that syncopated pattern. So very nice job. I think we are good to move on from that one. Let's go ahead and start Hannon number 12. Now, the disclaimer here is don't be intimidated by how number 12 looks. If you look at number 12 in your book, it looks a lot more intense than it actually is. All that they're doing is they are condensing the exercises onto one page instead of two. So from this point forward, all your exercises will appear only within one page. But it looks like a lot more ink on the page. It's not. It's exactly the same length. It's exactly the same type of exercise. Everyone kind of freaks out a little bit. You don't have to. So number 12 will start taking a look. Let's just do the ascending pattern for this week. So now that it's all on one page, the ascending pattern is not the first page because the first page is everything. So the ascending pattern ends after the third line, third measure. So that's where that kind of cuts off. And you'll notice you actually will see a thin double bar line there, and that's giving you an extra visual aid that you're changing patterns there. So once you reach that thin double bar line, you will stop and be done, because we'll just do the pattern going up, and we'll start at hands alone as well. So just ascending, going up. The weird part about this particular exercise is whenever you're, let me double check, make sure I'm not lying to you. Whenever you're, yes, going between measures, so from one measure to the next measure, you'll actually have a larger interval distance than what we've covered so far. So if you notice, I'm just looking at exercise number 12, the last note of your first measure is C, right? Your second measure actually starts on B. So from C to B, you're covering a seventh now, which we have not had to stretch more than a sixth for any of these other exercises. So that's something to watch for. You will have that large of a jump for your hand between measures. The other weird thing is you don't start each measure with the lowest note. So your first measure does not actually start on C, it ends on C. You're starting on an A instead. So it kind of flips a couple things around and throws us for a loop in a couple ways here, but it's really not anything too crazy if you know what you're looking at. So don't be alarmed by that, and we'll just, again, take that first ascending pattern, which is going all the way through the third line, third measure, and we'll keep it hands alone unless you get bored and you would like to try and put hands together, and then power to you. Go for it. But you don't have to. Either way is fine. All right, so that's the Hanon, and that brings us to your all-time favorite piece, the Minuet. So this actually is not bad. I think we just need to double check some of our notes in the left hand, particularly once we get, I know there was something off in measure 4 and measure 7, and then in measure 8, I think we just kind of left out a couple of notes. So ultimately, what I would do is I would just do a little bit of hands alone practice on this to focus on the left hand for those first 2 lines. So that way you can make sure you're getting all those notes in there. This, because it's a much more mentally demanding piece, it's not just a pattern like the Arpeggios or like the Hanon. It's something that is very constantly changing and is a little bit harder to follow than those other patterns. You'll notice that it takes longer to get it feeling like it did the last time you played it, which I think you probably already noticed when you were just doing your recordings, right? The other things kind of came together a little bit easier, and it totally makes sense that this is going to be a little bit more of an uphill battle just because it's more complex. So what I would do is definitely make sure when you go back to it, if it's been a little while, start with hands alone, and then when you put it hands together, don't try and just power through that same, like the entire section every single time all at once. Make sure that you're going little by little and kind of building on your own momentum. Otherwise, you'll feel like you're just powering through the whole thing over and over again, and it's not really making any progress or getting any better, and that is no fun. So I would make sure that you start hands alone, put it together in small sections. I would say no more than 2 measures at a time, maybe even 1 measure at a time, honestly, if it's been a little while, because we don't want to have to mindlessly struggle through it if there's no real benefit from it. So make sure that you're being, it's like a work smarter, not harder thing, right? Just make sure that you're being aware of your specific practice strategy when you get to this one. So the only thing I heard in the right hand here was that we're ending on D at the end of those 2 lines instead of a C. So I would just double check that. Again, I think once you're able to get back into more normal practicing, you're going to be catching these things, but just in case you're not, I want to point them out. And then we had also finished this piece hands alone. So remember, we should still be reviewing those last 2 lines, just one hand at a time. And the other thing we had talked about was those last 2 lines, they're the same, right? Almost exactly the same. I knew there was something, and I thought, oh, if I say exactly the same, there will be exactly the same. No, they're not. Okay, I was right. So See, don't second guess yourself. So when you get to the last measure on the page, that's the only place where your pattern changes a little bit from the first time through those 2 lines. These second 2 lines, the 3rd and 4th line on the page, your melody and your accompaniment are just transposed to a different key. So you're playing the same notes, patterns, you're playing the same fingering, everything's the same. It's just we've switched tonalities. So now it's going to sound like it's in the key of G instead of in the key of C. You'll also see you have those F sharps in there because the key of G would have an F sharp instead of just all white keys like the key of C. But everything is the same. We just have to get used to playing it in the different key, basically. And then, of course, that last measure will change. It's not exactly the same. And then after that, because we have a D, C, L, F, E, we will go back and repeat the first 2 lines. We're not worried about that yet because we don't even have that ending hands together yet, but I do want to make sure that you remember to practice that hands alone as well for this week. Okay, I think that is everything. Let me double check. Yep, that looks good. So for voice, we have our warm-ups, we have our solfege, and we have I Have Confidence because we wrapped up Kiss the Girl last time you were here. So again, if we do a video lesson like this for this coming Thursday as well, which I would guess you would get to me again on Sunday, it seems like the best day, excuse me, to do that. If that is the case, then what I would want you to send to me is a recording of your solfege. And let me double check what number we have. So we are on set 4, number 9. And then I would also want a recording of I Have Confidence. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be starting the group pieces that you'll be doing for the June recital. Because remember, the June recital is going to be all duets and ensemble stuff. So I've got stuff for you for voice and then stuff for piano. So we'll start digging into that as well. But I'll wait until you are actually able to come back in person. I don't want to put a whole bunch of new stuff on your plate, especially when we aren't able to physically go through it together on new music. So we'll just hold off on that. That's perfectly fine. And then we'll stick with those 2 things. You don't have to send me a recording of your warm-ups or anything. And then what I'll also do is I will send you new warm-ups after I send you this video link so that you have something new to throw into the mix for this week. And I think that is about it. So then the only other thing that I wanted to bring up while we're talking about what's coming up is that a week from today, so today is Monday the 12th. So a week from today is Monday the 19th, and that is actually a day that we do have a piano workshop on the calendar for you. So I think from what your mom said, that would probably work out for you. I think that's after the show, if I'm remembering correctly. But if that doesn't work out, that's okay. What I would ask is if you can let me know, if you know in advance that that's just not gonna be a good fit for this particular month, just so that I can plan accordingly, that would be great. Otherwise, if we're able to make that work, we would just need to pick out a piano piece to do. And at this point, because everything we're working on is really in progress, we would want to work backwards and just pick something that we've already completed off the review list. So, oh, what did I do with your paper? There it is. So most recently, that would be probably one of our 2 recital pieces, right? Either Morning Song or Blended Palette. So either one of those would be fine. Again, I would just want to know in advance so that I can prepare that for the workshop for Monday. And that would work like the other workshop that you attended months and months ago. So that is something to just kind of have on the radar. The other side of that too is your workshop group meets last for that day, and it ends at 5:30. And let me double check that. I am like 99% sure that's right. Oh, I can't, it's on my phone. Yeah, I'm 99% sure that's right. So your workshop group will end at 5:30, and then we could, if you wanted to, as an option, do an actual in-person lesson if you're able to come, just right piggybacking off of the workshop. So that would be a lesson from 5:30 to 6:30 on Monday the 19th. So we don't have to do that even if you are able to come for the workshop. That would just be an option to kind of get us back into a more in-person routine, and then I would just see you for your normal lesson next week on Thursday. So that gives us enough time in between lessons where it's pretty well spaced. It's not going to be like, oh, I just saw you and nothing's really improved, or, you know, stuff like that. We would still be able to make good use of having an in-person lesson Monday and one on Thursday as well. So that's something else to put on the radar. I think if we did that, we would not want to do a video lesson Sunday and then an in-person lesson on Monday, right? So that's kind of another thing to think about. If you send me stuff for Sunday, like you did yesterday, then I will just assume that we're not doing a lesson on Monday. Either way, if you want to just let me know what would be best for you, that would be ideal. Otherwise, I'll sit around just guessing. No, I won't. I'm starting to spin out a little bit. Okay, focus, Angela. So those are kind of the options there. If we don't do an in-person lesson on Monday as a makeup, then we will just, wait a sec. That would be for the 15th. That would be for this Thursday. So that's, okay, I'm back. Here we go. So we'll either do another video lesson on Sunday for the 15th, or it would be best if we don't do the video lesson to do an in-person lesson right after the workshop on Monday. So either way, you'll be getting lesson feedback on Monday. It'll either be a video from me or it'll be an in-person lesson after the workshop. So either one is fine. I just would need to know your preference, and then we'll be back to in-person next Thursday. And then I think I'd have to double check. I'm not going to try and guess how many makeups we'd have, but we should be in reasonable territory then. So those are the other things to think about. Again, if you can just let me know when you have a chance what is best for you, that'd be great. And I think that is everything. If I think of anything else, I will just message you. But like I said, I'll send you those new warm-ups right after I get this video finished and over to you. And if you have any other questions between now and then, just let me know. All right, have a great week. And I know you're doing tech, but break a leg. And I will see you when I see you. Bye.